Black families are still packing moving trucks in record numbers, and this time, the truck isn't running from the expensive city. It's running from the place you moved to last time. Not the Northeast anymore. Not California. The exit ramp itself is getting crowded. Black Americans are the reason Atlanta, Charlotte, and half of Texas got called the answer, and now some of those answers are starting to look like the question all over again. This isn't another best cities for black families list. Every city on this countdown already earned that title once. What we're ranking is something nobody puts in the brochure. How much of the discount that pulled you there is already gone, city by city, county by county, receipt by receipt. Not opinions, not vibes. The actual numbers on what these places cost now versus what they cost the year the moving trucks started showing up. No rounding in anybody's favor. 10 places black families ran to, and the clock that started running the day they signed, whether anybody read the fine print or not. Stay through this one and drop a comment when you get to yours, because a few of you are about to hear your own zip code called out on this list, and you already know which number it's going to be before we say it. Number 10, Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. A lot of black families didn't even choose Raleigh on purpose. They chose not New York or not DC, and the triangle, Raleigh, Durham, and the historically black neighborhoods around Southeast Raleigh was the first soft landing that showed up on the list. Research jobs, a black middle class that already had roots there, a house that didn't require a cosigner and a prayer. Here's the number that should worry anybody circling the triangle right now. Home prices in Raleigh jumped 14.8% in a single year, and North Carolina just finished as the #1 state in the entire country for people moving in from somewhere else. Not over a decade. In 12 months. Now, Raleigh isn't Atlanta yet. Nobody's writing Black Mecca no longer, headlines about the triangle. But that's exactly the problem with using headlines as an early warning system. By the time a city gets its own headline, the discount's already spent, and Brookings has already been tracking North Carolina as one of the top 3 landing states for this migration for years. Right now, the triangle is just raising the price slowly, a little at a time, instead of all at once. A black family who moved to Raleigh 3 years ago to get away from a bidding war is now watching a bidding war get built around them, one relocation content video at a time. This channel is part of that machine too, and that's exactly why this list needed to get made. A lot of triangle transplants will tell you the same story with a shrug, that they found the place before it got popular, as if popularity were weather, instead of something 1,000 videos like this one helped manufacture. Let's be honest about why it's only number 10 and not off the list entirely. It's not the most expensive place here, it's the newest one. The pattern is still forming. That's exactly why it's still worth naming out loud. Number 9. Fort Bend County, Texas. If you've spent any time researching where Houston's black middle class actually lives, Fort Bend comes up before Houston itself does. Missouri City, inside the county, is the name that comes up most. It's one of the most diverse counties in the country, the kind of place a relocation list points to as proof the whole strategy worked. Bigger yards, newer schools, a straight shot into the city for the job without the city's price tag. In 2025 alone, not over 5 years, 1 year, average sale prices in Fort Bend's urban markets rose more than 5%. Rural parts of the same county rose almost 11%. That's a county repricing itself in real time, while some families are still unpacking boxes from the last move. Compare that to Houston proper, a few items down this list, where the county's homeownership rate for black families just took its sharpest 1-year drop in a decade. Fort Bend was supposed to be the suburb that fixed that problem before it started. Instead, it's running the exact same math, just a few years behind the schedule everybody thought they'd escaped. Nobody sold Fort Bend as temporary. Nobody said, enjoy this for 5 years, then we raise the price. But that's the deal that got signed without anybody reading the fine print. Because there was no fine print. There was just a number that used to be lower, and a family that trusted the number to hold still. A lot of Houston area agents will tell you Fort Bend used to be the safe recommendation, the one you gave a cousin who didn't want surprises. Nobody's giving that recommendation with a straight face anymore. Fort Bend lands at number 9 because the gap hasn't closed yet. It's closing on a stopwatch, and a county can't out-diversify a spreadsheet. Number 8. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas used to be the honest deal in this whole migration story. No state income tax, room to build, and a straight shot out of California for anybody who did the math on a Los Angeles mortgage and closed the laptop in disgust, headed for North Las Vegas or the historic West Side instead of paying Inglewood prices. What changed is the buyer. In 2019, investors and cash buyers made up about 22% of Las Vegas home purchases, according to Redfin's own investor tracking data. By 2024, that number was 38%, a six-figure remote worker or an investment fund outbidding the family the city was actually marketed to in the first place. A lot of black families who left California for Vegas 10 years ago still call it the best decision they ever made. And it might be. But the version of Las Vegas they moved into and the version a black family would be moving into today are not the same city, even though it's the same skyline on the postcard and the same no state income tax pitch in every relocation video. To be fair, Vegas is still cheaper than Los Angeles, and it's not close. It just isn't cheap the way it used to be for the exact person it was built to rescue, and that gap doesn't announce itself. It just shows up as a higher number on the next offer you lose to a buyer who's never going to move in. Vegas lands at number 8 because the buyer pool flipped before the price did, and once the buyer pool flips, the price is just running to catch up to who's actually in the room now. Nobody at the closing table asks whether you moved here for the same reason the city was built to welcome you. They just ask whether you can beat the cash offer next door. Number 7. Moreno Valley, California. Say the words Inland Empire to a black family who used to live in South Central or Compton, and you're not describing a suburb, you're describing an escape hatch. Moreno Valley, and the Sunnymead side of it especially, built its whole reputation as the affordable landing spot when Los Angeles proper priced people out block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, decade after decade. As of February 2025, the median home price in Moreno Valley is $575,000. That's not a typo and it's not a fluke. That number puts Moreno Valley in a range some Los Angeles neighborhoods were sitting at back when black families first started running for the exit in the first place. The escape hatch is now pricing like the fire it was built to escape. Nobody in Moreno Valley is being redlined out or evicted en masse. This is quieter than that. It's a family that did everything right, chased affordability an hour and a half east, and watched the finish line move an hour and a half further out, right behind them. A lot of families out there will still tell you Moreno Valley beats Los Angeles on every number that matters, and on most of them it does. It just doesn't beat it on the one number the move was actually about anymore, and that's what makes this a completed loop instead of an early warning. Number 6. DeSoto County, Mississippi. This one moves faster than anything else on this list, so pay attention to the number, not the reputation. DeSoto County, Olive Branch and South Haven both, sits right across the Tennessee line from Memphis. Lower taxes, newer builds, and for years, it's been the answer for black families who love Memphis and can no longer afford to live inside it. In 2025, the average sale price in Olive Branch rose 29.4% in a single year. It's the fastest number on this list, not the biggest one. Nothing else here moved that hard in 12 months. Not Charlotte, not Houston, not even Atlanta. DeSoto County went from the quiet backup plan to the fastest appreciating name in this entire countdown, and most of the families who moved there for the quiet part never saw the acceleration coming. A lot of Memphis families say the same thing about DeSoto. It was supposed to buy them time. Lower payment, same commute, same church, same cookouts, just across a county line. Nobody signed up for a 30% year, and nobody's mortgage was built to absorb one. Olive Branch lands at number 6 because speed matters as much as scale here. A slow squeeze gives a family years to plan around it. This is not that, and the families living it right now are the ones who can tell you exactly how fast a "we'll grow into this house" plan can turn into "we need to sell before it grows past us." 5 down, 5 to go, and this next stretch gets a lot more personal. If you're getting something out of this, drop a like, hit subscribe so the next one finds you, and turn notifications on, because the second half only gets sharper from here. Number 1 is where the whole migration story started, and it's not going to be gentle about it. Number 5, Charlotte, North Carolina. Banking jobs, a growing black professional class, and a skyline that kept adding cranes every time you blinked. Charlotte sold itself as the Carolina answer for black families leaving New York or D.C. for something that still felt like a real city, just at half the price and twice the parking. In 2020, the median home sale price in Charlotte was around $300,000. By June of 2025, it was $435,000. That's not a 5-year drift. That's a city that repriced itself by nearly half. In the exact window, most of its new residents were still paying off the moving truck and learning where the good barbecue spot was. Charlotte didn't even wait for the cranes to finish before the price started moving on its own schedule. Let's talk about the part Charlotte's own tourism board doesn't put in the brochure. In Mecklenburg County, which holds Charlotte and University City both, white households own homes at meaningfully higher rates than black households, and black residents are overrepresented among people experiencing homelessness in a city that markets itself as the region's rising star. Nobody here is telling you to cross Charlotte off the list. It's a city where the welcome mat and the price tag are having two completely different conversations, and the second one keeps getting louder every single quarter. The gap here is real, but it's still survivable if you moved early. The families still deciding today are the ones running out of runway. Number 4, Houston and Harris County, Texas. No state income tax, a job market that never fully sat down, and enough room to build that "priced out" sounded like somebody else's problem for a long time. Houston was the practical choice, the one relatives recommended instead of the one influencers hyped on camera. In 2024, Harris County had its sharpest one-year pullback from homeownership in a decade, according to the Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Roughly 19,000 fewer households owned their homes than the year before. Nearly 30,000 more became renters, and that shift landed disproportionately on black families across the county. Walk through Acres Homes, South Acres, or East Little York, historically black Houston neighborhoods, and you'll find some of the fastest home price growth in the entire county over the last 5 years, $75,000 to $125,000 a house. And when the value goes up, so does the property tax bill attached to it, whether the family wanted the appraisal or not, whether they can afford the new number or not. Let's be clear, nobody in Houston is being told to leave. They're being told their house is worth more, which sounds like good news until you remember you can't spend equity on this year's tax bill unless you sell the house you were trying to keep in the family. Houston lands at number 4 because the scale here is bigger than anywhere else so far. A county-wide pullback, not a single neighborhood, and county-wide numbers don't reverse themselves quietly or quickly. Number 3, Henry County, Georgia. Henry County, Stockbridge especially, doesn't get the headlines Atlanta gets, and that's sort of the point. It built its reputation as the overflow valve, the majority black exurb where a family could still buy a house with a yard once the city itself stopped making sense on paper. What's actually happening to that yard? In Henry County, Corporate investors now own close to 70% of single-family rental properties, according to the Urban Institute's Housing Justice Hub, a rate of corporate ownership about 11 times the national average. That's not a family losing a bidding war to another family. That's a family losing a bidding war to a fund that never has to sleep on the decision, never has to qualify for a mortgage, and never plans to live in the house it just bought. When your neighbor is a spreadsheet instead of a person, the neighborhood stops setting its own price and starts taking orders from somewhere else. Henry County is still more attainable than the city it overflowed from. That part's true. But still cheaper than Atlanta is a moving target when the same investors who priced people out of Atlanta are the ones with a growing foothold here too, buying in cash, closing in days, never once viewing the house in person. Henry County lands at number 3 because this isn't appreciation doing what appreciation normally does. This is a specific mechanism, and it has a name, and the name isn't the market. Ask a longtime resident who the new neighbor is, and more often than not, they can't tell you because the new neighbor doesn't live there. It just collects. Number 2. Prince George's County, Maryland. If you wanted proof that this whole strategy could work, Prince George's County was the proof, Mitchellville most of all. It's the wealthiest majority black county in America. Black households own close to 67% of all the housing wealth in the entire county, and the home ownership rate there beats the national average by a wide margin. That same success is what's pricing the next family out. The median home sale price in Prince George's County passed $450,000 in the middle of 2025, up almost 6% in a single year, and property taxes climbed right alongside it, quietly, on the same bill. Regional coverage has started asking whether Prince George's is losing its status as the region's Black Promised Land, because the county's biggest export right now isn't its story, it's its own former residents, most of them heading to Charles County next door, which is now getting called the richest black county in the country instead, and probably won't hold that title forever either. Nobody built a wall around Prince George's County. Black success did that on its own, and that's the part nobody wants to hear about a place this many families are rightfully proud of building. This is the cleanest proof on the whole list. The ladder doesn't stay down. It gets pulled up by the exact people who climbed it. Number 1. Atlanta, Georgia. For 20 years, if you were black and looking for a city that felt like it was built for you on purpose, Atlanta was the answer, before you finished asking the question. Black mayors, black CEOs, black colleges with waiting lists, a music and film economy that made black excellence sound less like a slogan and more like a zip code you could actually afford to live in. So why is the same city now getting headlines that literally read, Black Mecca no longer? Atlanta is second in the entire country, behind only Washington, D.C., for the number of neighborhoods that flipped from majority black to majority white between 1980 and 2020. According to the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, the city lost more than 40% of its majority black census tracts in that window, and Old Fourth Ward is the neighborhood people point to first. Not slipped, lost. Atlanta didn't get discovered by accident. Black families told the truth about it for 2 decades, in group chats, at reunions, in videos just like this one. The marketing worked. That's the whole story. It worked so well, it became its own competition. Nobody hijacked Atlanta. Nobody had to, when the truth about a place is good enough to sell itself, over and over, until there's nobody left in the room who remembers what the price was before everybody knew. Atlanta lands at number 1, not because it's the worst deal on this list in raw dollars. It isn't. But because it's the most finished version of every mechanism the other 9 cities are still in the middle of. This is what it looks like when the shortlist effect runs all the way to the end. So here's the actual thesis, because it was never don't move. Every city on this list is still, on paper, cheaper than the place a lot of these families left. That was never the lie. The lie was thinking the math stops the day the truck gets unloaded. It doesn't. The math just resets the clock and starts over, at whatever pace that city's popularity sets. Which of these 10 cities do you think still has real room left? And which one do you think is already closer to fully priced out than the headlines are willing to admit? Argue it out in the comments, because half of you live in one of these counties right now, and you know the real number better than any report ever will, better than we do sitting here reading it off a page. If this kind of honest math is why you're here, there's more of it coming every week. Because the goal was never to sell you a city. It was to make sure nobody sells you one without you seeing the receipt first, and without you knowing exactly how much time you've actually got before this list needs an update.